Promoting and forwarding Black empowerment is not an event, it's a process. So is it a daily warfare, such as Paul described in the good book, or is it more of a daily labor that we have to carry out? Well, the answer is both. As long as white supremacy stands, it is going to remain a daily warfare, but it's a war that we are determined to win. The operatives of white supremacy are not merely in plain sight, they are also slithering among us. And we have to keep our eyes open, and we have to keep our ears open, and we also have to keep our minds guarded. White supremacy's standard MO is to distract, or if that fails, to derail. What's the difference? Well, distraction comes in the form of a big, loud, noisy thing that's meant to get you looking away from the true path of Black empowerment. To derail, on the other hand, is when white supremacy realizes that you're not a child, so they're not going to be able to get you to focus on a shiny object and get you off course. So instead, what they do is they say a few things that sound like Black empowerment, and as soon as they've got you nodding your head with them, then they come along with the other nonsense that you didn't ask for until you go in this other direction. Black empowerment is effectively derailed. Now, the reason that I've entitled this evening's video address Beating a Dead Stalking Horse is because you've heard me use that phrase numerous times, stalking horse. And what exactly is a stalking horse? Well, a stalking horse has traditionally been used by hunters. It's basically a cardboard cutout of a horse or some other bovine-like animal, and the hunter gets to stand behind it and take aim at his prey, because his prey will look and they'll see a horse and think, oh, well, there's nothing there but a horse, not realizing there's a man with a gun behind it. That's one definition of a stalking horse, but the practical definition of a stalking horse, the reason that it made it into modern parlance, is because a stalking horse is usually a proxy, being put forward by some sort of third party who's trying to remain anonymous. And this is how white supremacy has successfully manipulated the Black community for so long, by using these Black bootlicks, both whether they're on television, whether they're in political office, or so-called social leaders, when they're nothing more than sock puppets for white supremacy. They are there to put you and I off guard. We look and we see an ostensibly Black person, not realizing that there's a white supremacist behind them taking aim at us. And so it's been. But now that you've got the Black media, who have finally achieved a critical mass, got just enough Black folks who can act as a force multiplier and signal boost what it is that we say. Now white supremacy is being forced to have to try some other things. They're having to put aside some of the old strategies and some of the old ploys because they just don't work. And you can tell that the bad guys don't know whether to spit or go blind. You can tell that we have thrown the white supremacist political machine into disarray because of the fact that in the last week alone, you've had both Deval Patrick, the biracial, high yellow, whatever you want to call it, former governor of Massachusetts, and no less than Michael the Bigot Bloomberg, both announced that they wanted to run for president. In the case of Bloomberg, he hasn't said, I'm running for president yet, but he's already apologizing for stop and frisk. And not even really apologizing. He's just basically saying, well, we could have handled things differently. So what that means is he has seen what happened to Kamala Harris. He saw that you have this sort of Black woman who got taken to the woodshed by the Black media, had her candidacy crushed overnight, and he's looking and going, well, hell, these guys will make short work out of me, and he's right, we will. So he thinks to himself that he's going to get out in front of it. He knows that he's going to get skinned alive for stop and frisk, but that was just one of a ton of unforgivable things that he did. He was strident and unapologetically racist in his promotion of stop and frisk. Among other policies, Michael Bloomberg is an anti-Black racist, full stop. And if he thinks that giving some half-baked, clearly insincere, faux mea culpa for stop and frisk is somehow going to mitigate the damage, if he thinks that, well, this will at least make it where I've already addressed it, that ain't going to help you. Kamala Harris thought that if she just didn't talk about it, it would help. It didn't. So thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to defuse it. Nah, the old games don't apply. The old, well, we've already rendered that moot because we say it's moot because we've already addressed it. Now, the white media doesn't get to decide whether or not you have made amends. That day is done. The white media doesn't get to arbitrarily bestow innocence upon you. It's only the black media that can say whether or not you stand on the side of the angels. And Michael Bloomberg is nothing but the devil. And as for Deval Patrick, oh, this incompetent tool. This is Obama 2.0. I mean, all you got to do is look at Politico, and I think that these guys must be taking crib notes from the black media because they use the same terminology that I use. That Bloomberg and Deval Patrick are seen as stalking horses. And more importantly than that, you got people out there saying that these guys are supposed to be representatives of the Democratic middle. So these are the individuals who hopefully, I guess the idea behind them is they're going to appeal to the casual racists, read white moderates, and that's apparently what they're thinking. But we all know what's really going on here. What's going on here is the white powers that be are looking and going, man, without the black vote, everything is completely out of balance, and black people are demanding tangibles. So what we need is to put some candidates on the ballot who are going to bring in non-black votes. They're trying to prove that their little political shell game still has integrity, that it still has stability, that it still has equilibrium without the black vote. That's the point that they have to reach. They realize now that the new voices of black media, and the black media in specific, happen to have enough people listening now. We are having a real impact. We are influencing how people speak and what they say and who they're talking about. We're having a real impact on the electoral conversation, which is exactly what we set out to do over a decade ago, to take control of the social discourse within the black community. So you're not going to be able to go to the breakfast schlubs, and you're not going to be able to go to Roly Poly Martin, and you're not going to be able to go to Joy Reid or any other clowns and think that you're going to bypass the popular will of the black community. No more. But that's not to say that these fools won't try. All you have to do is take Kamala Harris as a case study in this political exercise in futility that white supremacy is putting on right now. Kamala Harris's campaign is already comatose. She just won't call the time of death until March. That's when I predict that she's going to throw in the towel. At that point, I think there'll be enough people who are telling her, you're making a fool of yourself, to the point where even she can't pretend to think that she actually has a chance. The primaries don't start until February, with the Iowa caucuses being first, so she'll be marshaling all of her rapidly dwindling resources for that one. Now, the Iowa caucuses, of course, are not a primary, but they are a statewide plebiscite related to the presidential election, so they're a good test run for the primaries. Now, Kamala doesn't actually hope to win the Iowa caucuses, but her goal is to replicate what Obama did in 2008. She hopes to place high enough, and then is praying that finishing in the top 2 in Iowa is going to boost her standing for the real first primary, which is, of course, New Hampshire. Obama stunned everyone in 2007 when he came in second in New Hampshire. It was after that when people began to believe that white voters would actually vote for a biracial candidate. And that was pretty much Barack Obama breaking through. But of course, circumstances differ greatly between Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. Barack Obama didn't bring the kind of baggage that Kamala Harris brings. His main problem was that he hadn't really held too many political offices. But the advantage, of course, was he didn't have much of a track record that people would be up in arms about. Kamala Harris has been making a disgraceful track record for the better part of 30 years now. She doesn't get to play the game of, well, you don't know much about me, so I guess I have to prove that I've got the aptitude and the attitude to be president. No, that's what Obama did. And he also had a black community that he was on again, off again, playing the game of, let's let the black community's imagination fill in the blanks. I'm not going to say what I'm going to do for them, but I'm going to kind of hint, kind of beat around the edges, and black people, they will be so desirous, so desperate to have a president who actually treats them like a real constituency whose real needs deserve real policies. They'll fill in the blanks with their imaginations. They'll tell themselves that, oh, when he gets in there, he'll do something. He ain't say, yeah, but he doesn't want to scare those white voters. And when I get in there, they'll then tell themselves, okay, he didn't do anything for us his first term. He's just waiting for his second term, even though practically nothing happens for a president during their second term. So Barack Obama played that game, and he muddied the waters for Kamala Harris and any of the others who think that they're going to follow in his footsteps. Yeah, Barack Obama didn't win in New Hampshire, though it turned his campaign around, but that ain't the way it's going to go for Kamala Harris, and that's not the way that it's going to go for any of the other Democrats. Kamala's hoping that placing high in Iowa and New Hampshire is going to boost her chances for actually winning in South Carolina, the last primary of February, and it's also going to be the first test of whether she can turn out the black vote. That's what Kamala Harris thinks that South Carolina is going to be. She's going to find out whether or not her sorority chums were actually able to turn out the vote, or if the black media did indeed crush her like a bug. She's going to find out, but you better believe that the white powers that be, they're also watching this too. The left arm of white supremacy, the Democrats, they're watching what happens not merely with their front-runner candidates, their front-runner phonies like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie the bigot Sanders, but they're also watching Kamala Harris because they need to find out, how serious is the black vote? How serious is the black community about their tangibles? How serious are they about holding candidates' feet to the fire? How serious is this revolt in the servants' quarters? That's what the white media is trying to find out. And South Carolina will be a good test for them. Do the preachers and the other pulpit pimps still have the ability to turn out the black vote? Do the traditional stalking horses for white power, these black Greeks and sororities and these black phony social groups and these pulpit pimps and these black politicians, do these clowns who have been the operatives for white supremacy for the longest time, do they still have the black community on lock? If they do, well, things go on as they always have. That black media was a tempest in a teapot. But if they don't, then this will be real confirmation, not merely for the white media, not merely for the white political establishment, but it's also going to be confirmation for the black tools themselves. They will realize that there is a real grassroots movement afoot that has the ability now to cut them off at the knees and is exercising that power. It will signal to everyone that there has been a shift. A real shift, one that white power did not sanction, and hence one that white power cannot control. Now, whether or not this is serious comes down to you. The black media is merely giving voice to what you've been saying all along, but you must add good actions to these good words. So make no mistake, white supremacy is always looking way the heck down the road to see where the trend is going. And when it comes to the trend of American politics, the black vote is a swing vote. They want to know, is this swing vote truly as discontent and furious as they've been saying, or is this just another example of black folks needing to blow off some steam at Kamala Harris? And as soon as you get somebody out there who says, student debt, blah, 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 something or other, or somebody who says, the black community, empowerment zones, go ahead and give them some indistinct, unspecific, insincere rhetoric. Don't actually spell out anything specific about it. Just throw out some empty terms like economic development, something that could mean anything, but you're not going to actually earmark it for the black community. It's going to be something for everyone. And one or two black people, usually some hand-picked stooges, might be a part of some of these plans, but it won't amount to much for the black community. That's what the long game here is. And there are some black folks who are playing along with it. But make no mistake, Kamala Harris's would-be roadmap to the nomination is nothing more than a subset of white supremacy's overall plan for how they're going to get the black community back onto the electoral treadmill. But they're trying to find out, have they truly lost control of the black electorate and the black community? Are we serious that we are no longer going to allow anyone else to dictate to us what our interests are and what it is that we're going to do in pursuit of our interests? Are we speaking and thinking and acting for ourselves? Or was it just a matter of we were throwing the political equivalent of a temper tantrum and, well, a pat on the head will be enough to get us back on board? And another thing, white supremacy's black operatives have always found a ready audience with the old, dead black media. You know, there's a reason why chumps like Hillary Clinton always go running to these phonies. The pursuit of attention from the white media, and when the closest you can get to black people is the old, dead black media, that tells you a lot. Who you talk to matters. If you're a black person who's attempting to try to get your message to the black community, or if you're trying to somehow have an impact on the social discourse in the black community, who it is you go to signal boost your message, who it is that you go to try to spread the word, that says a lot. And it also says a lot who you refuse to talk to. You can tell who white supremacy's black bootlicks are who think they're going to hoodwink us because they have the exact same problem that their white counterparts do, which is they're only comfortable talking to certain black folks because they know that they're not going to get any questions that they don't have any answers for. They simply want some fool who's going to sit there and try to palm themselves off as being a surrogate for the black community, a proxy for the black community. That's what stalking horses do. This is the reason why we could never get anything out of messy Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, and why it is that clowns like DeRay McKeeson haven't produced anything and are never going to produce anything. That's not what they were there for. If you got somebody who the white media seems very eager to give publicity to, and they're not attacking this black person, but they mention their name a lot. If that stuff starts happening, that's your first clue that the white media knows something about this person that you don't know. That's the first thing that ought to be your first warning sign. The white media does not bring you on without trying to trash you. That's what Mike Wallace tried to do with Malcolm X back in the day. He didn't bring Malcolm X on for the sake of publicizing Malcolm X's agenda. He did it for the sake of saying the hate that hate produced. Trying to make an equivalence between a black liberation activist and, say, the Ku Klux Klan. Malcolm X never lynched any white person. His father was killed by white people. Malcolm X never burned any white churches. But the white folks were burning churches in Malcolm X's hometown, left, right, and center. Omaha was not safe. Negroes who are always running around trying to get white media attention, they present a friendly face to the propaganda arm of white supremacy. The two go hand in hand. White power believes in brain typing. I've told you about that in the past. Trying to figure out what kind of personality they're dealing with. They know a Negro who craves white media attention because they want to feel like they're part of the in crowd. No matter how much the white media abused Al Sharpton, for some strange reason, he never had a problem going to their shows, and he never seemed to hold a grudge about it, even though they were making him into a laughing stock, or if they weren't demonizing him outright. He never seemed to be bothered by that. He was a clown, and apparently he didn't mind being part of the white media's anti-black circus. Well, I got problems with that, and you should have problems with that too. And now look at Al Sharpton. He's got a little show, and the white media's decided we're not going to bring up Tawana Brawley anymore because we got Reverend Al. Give me a break. And he's not bringing up the fact that the same people that he's sitting here yucking it up with, these are the clowns who have been justifying the murders of black people boldly. When Tamir Rice was murdered, you had Joe Scarborough and Mika the Bigot Brzezinski who were trying to blame the kid for his own death, blaming a black child for being murdered by some trigger-happy white cop who shot that child to death within 2 seconds of skidding up in front of him. That's who and what MSNBC is. No difference between them and the jolly, smiling racist over at Fox News. But all you got to do is give Al Sharpton give him a couple of phony compliments and tell him, oh, we'll go ahead and we'll give you a little bit of money every time you give your worthless opinion on air. And as far as he's concerned, sold. How many pieces of silver for his wretched, for what passes for his soul? Not many at all, I would imagine. But psychic benefits, not giving you respect, but giving you a pat on the head, treating you like a dog, that's one of white power's primary ways of incentivizing people to do their bidding. I don't feel comfortable around black folks who are media personalities. I don't feel comfortable around people who the white powers that be have lifted up and try to elevate them. When I see a black person who the white media is not going at and isn't trashing, I look and go, I'm going to have to keep my eye on you. See, Professor Black Truth doesn't feel comfortable around black celebrities or black athletes or black media personalities. And there's a good reason for that. These guys have established that basically they're not about to challenge white supremacy. Not at all. Oh, they may talk like they got their heads on straight. Bill Cosby did in the 70s, and then, well, he showed what his true colors were, and his white media friends showed what their true colors were. See, I'm not comfortable around these black celebrities, and they're not comfortable around black people like me, and that's fine. But it seems some of our people, they aspire to be black celebrities, at least it seems to be the case. And they want to hang around these people. As black folks, we are starstruck by black celebrities because these are the only people who white power has allowed to be presented to us as symbols of black success. They were the only ones who the white media wasn't attacking nonstop. So we took the nonverbal cue that, well, if this guy if these white media types think this black person's all right, well, he's an approved of Negro. At least we can do it without too many people looking and going, do you know what the white media said about that Muhammad Ali guy? How can you say he's a draft dodger? Yeah, we decide that we're going to let the white media tell us who our heroes should be. The white media will tell us who our role models should be. And if the white media finds that we're turning them a deaf ear, or at the very least, we're not receptive to the message coming from them, then what happens is they go ahead and get some black shill to try to sell the soap for them. You know, there's a fundamental contradiction between calling out the old dead black media for their unbroken track record of telling lies to our community and perpetuating and promoting all kinds of off-code behavior and running interference for white supremacy's anti-black policies and activities, and then deciding that we're going to be calling ourselves acting as if these guys have not done anything wrong. There shouldn't be any black person who feels comfortable talking to any of these black shill bootlicks. When you see some Negro who claims to be speaking for the interest of the black community, but every time you see them, they're always running to talk to the shill mouthpieces for white media, that's supposed to put you on red alert. The corrupt and now rotting black bootlicks for the old black media, they were propped up and promoted by the white media as a way of bypassing the popular will of the black community. It was the white media putting on a show. Here's some black person who's going to tell you what black folks think because we paid them to say it. That's the show that they've been putting on for the longest time. And they've been getting away with it. Because there was not a substantive and pervasive enough counter-programming voice that was saying otherwise, that was saying the truth. The black media has been out here in the vineyards toiling for over a decade, but the message has been repeated over and over again, and at long last it has taken hold and it's now bearing fruit. And we're not about to quit now. The entire point of the black bootlicks is to say that black people are dissatisfied and marginalized, and then as soon as they've got black folks nodding their heads and going, yeah, that's right, then these black bootlicks start lying and misleading the conversation away from the very things that we are saying are the problems. Joy Reid don't give a damn about black people. All she cares about is making herself as useful to the DNC as possible. She gets her daily bread from the left arm of white supremacy, and she's fine with that. Stacey Dash was putting in an application to get her daily bread from the right arm of white supremacy. She thought that she was going to be the darling of Fox News, and, well, we all know how that one turned out. The only reason that we know who clowns like Don Lemonade or Roly Poly Martin are is because the white media gave them big resources. In the case of Roly Poly, they used to give him resources. And so they were given a platform because that's what happens when you've amassed the kind of stolen wealth that white supremacy has. You can arbitrarily give some chump a platform, even though he doesn't deserve it, can't do anything with it. You can go ahead and turn your lie into everyone else's reality. You make it where everyone sees them. You make them prominent. That's deliberate. You are inventing a media personality where previously none existed. Look at Stephen Smith. Black folks can't stand Stephen Smith. But we all know that he's not there for the sake of saying anything that black people would actually agree with. The only reason he's there is he's supposed to be the black guy who nods his head and agrees and says, that's right, these NFL owners, they're not racist. And now they're these NBA owners. And well, it's about more than money. And well, there might be some small problems, but blah, 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 blah. That's what he's there for. And you'll see the rest of the white media, particularly ABC, which is the owner of ESPN. They're all part of the Disney Corporation. Whenever Stephen A. Smith gets his ignorant behind out there and says something stupid, all of a sudden he pops up on Good Morning America. Ain't it interesting how that always works? That's the white media's way of signal boosting the lies that come from the black bootlicks. So you got some black folks out there who are calling themselves holding court with these black bootlicks. That is, for the white media, that is not some victimless crime. It is not. The white media's black bootlicks are deadly to us. These guys are the people who white supremacy puts out there and says our policies of attacking the black community are legitimate, and why we're not attacking the black community at all. Why, here we got Joy Reid who agrees with us. She's not about to say that Michael Bloomberg is completely unacceptable even to be talking about the presidency because he cannot undo the damage that he did with stop and frisk. She's not about to say imagine the damage he'll do as president. She's not about to do that. And neither is Jonathan putting on his Cape Heart. And neither is Roly-Poly Martin. And neither are the rest of these fakers, frauds, phonies, and fools. So you better be real careful about the vipers that you're clutching to your bosom when you call yourself playing footsie with these guys. Their mission is to push the white power line. They are dark faces who are trying to promote white supremacy's agenda. And this is why you'll never see me talking to them. Because it would serve no purpose. Have you ever seen what happens whenever black folks, some black dissident who means well but really ought to know better, they call themselves going on these platforms that are either hosted by some white person or hosted by a black bootlick for the white media. The format's always the same. They put one black person talking sense on the panel and then have them outnumbered by 3 other people, 4 if you include the so-called host. This type of format is meant to indoctrinate the viewer that the guy who's this one person who's outnumbered here, he's a crackpot and he's out of step with the majority opinion. That's programming that the white media is doing. Because there's so many people who are disagreeing with him, obviously he must be wrong. And even the host is disagreeing with him. That's because he must be wrong. See, they never bring on multiple dissenters if they disagree with the network's standpoint. The entire point of these little charades is to reinforce whatever the core view is of that particular white media outlet. That's the entire point. And even if you get the better of them, even if the black person who's outnumbered, even if he does get in some good shots, and even if he does hold his own, well, all that'll happen is the next day, that same white media network or radio station or what have you, they'll have another panel. Only this time, this black person who was talking sense won't be invited to it. This time they decide, we'll have the same conversation only without so-and-so. And then they'll talk amongst themselves about how wrong said person was, and they'll declare victory on the issue. That's another one of their favorite little ploys. Whenever they take that L, it's a matter of, okay, this guy, he's a little bit too good for us, so we'll go ahead and bring somebody else on, or we'll just not have them all. We'll go ahead and just commiserate in front of the camera about how wrong this guy is. So to me, talking to the white media or to the white media's black bootlicks, it's a largely self-defeating exercise under most circumstances. I'm not going to say that it should never, ever be done, but it's a matter of, to me, it doesn't move the ball down the field. reminds me of something that Bill Moyers said, that basically the way that the media has happens to have arranged itself in modern times, what the best that you can hope for is you've got one person saying one particular point of view, you got another person saying exactly the opposite, and they leave the viewer to split the difference. That's a recipe for maintaining the status quo. That's the only thing that a format like that can do. It maintains the status quo because it does not ever say, wait a minute here. We know what the answers are to these political burning issues. We know what the answers are to these political questions. Instead, it pretends as if both sides are equally valid, and the black media does not partake in that lie. We know that both sides are not valid. Oh, there's a race war going on in America. Actually, there's been a race war going on for 500 years. And in every war, there's two sides, the right side and the wrong side. And this country's been on the side of white supremacy, and that's the wrong side. The black media represents the right side, the side of justice. Now, what they're wondering is whether or not we're going to be bought off, whether or not we're going to have stars in our eyes, and we won't. I warned you about the old, dead black media. These are proven white power puppets. Whenever you see someone who runs to one of these clowns, that's 3 red flags that you're dealing with an agent. To associate with the white media's black bootlicks, that is off code as hell. Last time he ran for president, Bernie Sanders boldly said that reparations was unfeasible. And yet, for some damn reason, he seemed just totally comfortable talking with Charlemagne the Fraud and DJ Penis Envy on the breakfast schlubs. And the same thing goes for Elizabeth Warren. You would think that Elizabeth Warren is a lifelong Republican. She'd be nervous sitting in a room with 3 allegedly black people, but she wasn't very nervous on the breakfast schlubs at all. Why do you think Malcolm Nance never seems to be bothered talking to Joy Reid? Because he knows that Joy Reid is never going to call him out for all the bullcrap that he says. He already knows that. So he has no problem talking with her. Hillary Clinton had no problem holding court with Roly-Poly Martin because she knew that she would never be asked about her support for stop and frisk. She damn sure didn't do anything to stop it. And the 94 crime bill, she would never be asked, why is it that you never proposed legislation to repeal it or to do anything about it to undo the damage of it? She knew that Roly-Poly would never do that. So she was totally comfortable there. See, the operatives for white supremacy, they're very comfortable talking with the black bootlicks because they know that the black bootlicks are just so eager, drooling at the mouth to please white power. They get it. They know the function that these clowns serve. But while the Kamala Harrises and the Elizabeth Warrens are being made to feel all warm and cuddly in the warm embrace of these black bootlicks, meanwhile, our interests, the interests of the black community, are not being merely ignored. They're being run into the ground. Nobody is saying what needs to be said. Big Bird, when he had his stupid show on XM or Sirius, wherever the hell it was, he had Kamala Harris on. This clown's supposed to be, to hear him tell it, the oldest, longest standing reparations organization in America. Yeah, but reparations damn sure wasn't on the menu when Kamala Harris was sitting there right in front of him. This is supposed to be a guy who was real indignant. He was indignant when he was on Joy Reid's show. When he was on her little side show, he was real indignant. He was going to be the voice of reparations for black folks. But when he had Kamala Harris right in front of him, reparations was a blink and you'll miss it mention. His big goal was, well, I need to help Kamala Harris become president because then I can take some pictures with her, and that's some social capital, and I'll be able to go to the Kamala Harris's inaugural luncheon, to be followed by the spring luncheon for the NAACP. You know, every time Big Bird looks up, every time he opens his mouth, he's talking about the next luncheon that he's going to or the luncheon that he just got through coming away from. This is supposed to be who we listen to. This is the old, dead black media. And you wonder why I have such contempt for them. The people who put Barack Obama in the White House were young black people under the age of 40. And you got clowns like Roly-Poly Martin saying completely and thoroughly ignore them. The black baby boomers got one foot in the grave, the other leg dangling. They're done and they have not accomplished anything for either Generation X or the millennials. But what does Roly Poly say? I mean, y'all need to forget about them young black voters. They ain't gonna accomplish nothing. They ain't gonna do nothing. They ain't gonna matter a damn for the election. You need to be talking to them older black voters because they're the ones who really count in the election. They're the ones who votes really matter. What Roly Poly was really saying is that he has no influence with young black voters because the black media has knocked him out the box. So he's trying to get people to not look at the fact that he has no influence with the black voters who actually put presidents in the White House. Instead, it's a matter of don't worry about the people who I don't have any influence with. Just concern yourself with this rapidly diminishing, dwindling elderly group, the 55 to dead demo. Go ahead and concern yourself with them because there's a few of them who still listen to me because they remember when I used to be relevant. We as a people have got to start learning to be more discerning than we've been and get beyond the point where we can't see danger until it slaps us in the face. See, I judge people by the company they keep. And as the pressure is applied, as black empowerment is able to increasingly make its demands felt and refuses to compromise on them, as the black media starts making things hot in the streets, everyone will be forced to declare where they stand. Everyone will be forced to reveal what they've really been about. See, people can talk a good game all day long, but it's what they do that matters. Black media is changing the game. The people who are trying to put a new twist on the same old black front Negro con, these guys are going to fade away. The people who have been slow to figure out the scams and schemes of white supremacy, they're going to be left behind. People who champion individuals or parties or particular legislation only to figure out later that they were fundamentally wrong, these are not people who should be listened to. You're supposed to perform due diligence before you call yourself talking to our people, not after. See, this is the reason why Kamala Harris has been all over the place when it comes to her criminal justice record. Because of the fact that she was doing what was expedient to white power, and now that she's being held to account, she's trying to run away from all the bad, malicious decisions and policies that she's been enacting and been prosecuting us with all this time. Now she's trying to run away from it. While marijuana is certainly something that shouldn't be legalized, the problem is it is an inescapable truth that the so-called war on drugs has been nothing more than a clumsy front for a war on black people. Kamala Harris had no problem defying the will of the electorate, as she put it, when it came to gay marriage. But as soon as you say, hey, there's only a handful of California voted against gay marriage. But California is all in favor of decriminalizing marijuana, which would help a lot of black folks and get a lot of black folks out of prison. Kamala Harris, well, as she walks away. Yeah, you see, you got to be careful about people like that. People who are in favor of legislation that criminalizes truancy, but it only gets enacted against black folks. And then later on, well, I didn't know the law was as bad as all that. Yeah, but you're telling black folks that they should be in favor of it. And you got the old dead black media who's not on a warpath about it. When Kamala Harris sits in front of you, the first thing you're supposed to be asking her about is all the black folks she's put in prison. You ain't supposed to be up here ha-haing and yucking it up with her. But you see, that's what's going to happen. That's what happens if we just give it enough time. Even though time is our enemy, it's certainly against us. But nonetheless, as events play themselves out, all these folks who have been wrong, they're going to be invalidated simply because, and this is something that Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael, talked about. He said that either you are going to choose the path of revolution or circumstances will become so dire you will have no choice but to. And he was right. When the pain becomes great enough, when the enforcement arm of white supremacy starts really cracking down on black folks and they no longer have the luxury of being able to deny reality, when they get scared enough of white supremacy that they finally knuckle under and cave in and start begging white daddy not to be coming for them, the cowards will reveal themselves, the fools will reveal themselves, and the true soldiers will not have to reveal themselves because they've been standing in front of you all along. The only thing that'll happen is you'll smarten up and be able to recognize, okay, this is what I should have been following all along. You see, the B1 message hasn't changed, and it's not going to change because we got it right the first time. So the stalking horses, they'll be propped up by white power. That's what white power is going to do. He's going to prop up the stalking horses while it takes aim at us. But you know what? Black empowerment is bulletproof. We didn't just get up yesterday morning and decide we're going to be doing this. We've been out here in the vineyards for a long dang time. And we're going to stay out here because of the fact that black empowerment is going to become the new normal. So all the folks who apparently think that playing footsie with the enemies of the black community is cute, in time, what's going to happen is people are going to see what a mistake it was. All this stuff will be revealed in time. Same way Kamala Harris was. Same way that the old dead black media has been. All of these things are going to be shown for what they are. And it's not a matter of we're trying to win an argument with anyone. It's just a matter of the truth cannot merely be the truth. It must also be told, and it must also be seen. And that's what the black media is doing. That's what the black media is about. So I'm glad that all this stuff is happening. Things need to be shaken up. People need to be made uncomfortable. They need to be made to no longer think that things are going to go on the way that they have. Make it where people have to actually fight to either prop up white supremacy or they have to fight in order to tear it down so that we can see who's doing the work and who ain't. As a people, we are being tested. History is testing us. And the passing grade will not merely be victory. The passing grade is going to be whether or not you continue to remain on this earth.